When The Lost Boys hit theaters in 1987, it rewrote the rules of vampire cinema. This wasn't an old-fashioned horror story set in cobwebbed castles. It was leather jackets, motorcycles, neon lights, and rock and roll bloodsuckers. Directed by Joel Schumacher, it mixed teen angst with gothic horror, creating a cult classic that felt equal parts MTV and monster movie. Behind the neon glow and stylish vampires, the making of The Lost Boys came with its own strange stories. From on-set injuries and grueling special effects to a boardwalk still whispered about for its haunted past, the film blurred the line between legend and reality. Add in daring creative choices and subtext that only grew clearer over time, and it's no wonder this cult classic has never lost its bite. Here are 20 creepy and strange facts about The Lost Boys that will make you see this vampire favorite in a whole new light. Number 1. The film was originally a kid's adventure. Strange as it sounds, The Lost Boys was first pitched as a kind of Goonies with vampires. Screenwriter Janice Fisher's early draft featured 13-year-old kids fighting young bloodsuckers, with characters named after Peter Pan's Lost Boys. The Frog Brothers were envisioned as nerdy 8-year-olds obsessed with comics. When Joel Schumacher signed on, he tore up the script and pushed it darker, older, and cooler. He aged the kids into teenagers, added leather and motorcycles, and layered in sex appeal. The bizarre twist is that a story pitched as childlike fun transformed into one of the most darkly elegant vampire films of the 1980s.
You did me!
Number 2. Kiefer Sutherland broke his wrist filming. Kiefer Sutherland performed his own motorcycle stunts as David. During filming, he broke his right wrist after attempting a wheelie and hitting trolley tracks. The crew had to design a thin polyurethane cast and modify the bike's controls so he could continue riding. This injury also led to the now iconic black gloves in his costume. Number 3. The film spawned 2 direct-to-DVD sequels, and they didn't fare well. The cult success of The Lost Boys eventually led to 2 direct-to-DVD follow-ups. Lost Boys: The Tribe, 2008. Directed by P.J. Pesci, starring Corey Feldman alongside newcomer Tad Hilgenbrink, the sequel was a commercial surprise, becoming Warner Bros.' highest-selling DVD of 2008 and recouping its $5 million budget within 3 weeks. However, critics were not impressed. It earned a 0% Rotten Tomatoes score from 7 reviews, with an average rating of 2.85 out of 10. Lost Boys: The Thirst, 2010. Directed by Dario Piana, this third installment reunited Corey Feldman with Jamison Newlander. It performed less impressively in sales, grossing just $907,000 in its first 2 weeks, and similarly received panned reviews, also scoring 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, with critics giving it an average of about 3.4 out of 10 based on 7 reviews. These low critical scores and modest commercial returns highlighted the difficulty of capturing the original film's magic, though the sequels kept The Lost Boys' legacy alive for fans craving more dark teen vampire energy. Number 4. Corey Haim's closet was covered in posters. Sam Emerson's bedroom in the movie is plastered with colorful posters, Rob Lowe's shirtless pinup being the most infamous. This wasn't just set decoration. It was a deliberate choice to make Sam's character pop as quirky, flamboyant, and comic-obsessed. The weird part is how much fans still debate those posters. Some read them as coded hints about Sam's sexuality, while others see them as pure 80s excess. Either way, the vibrant, chaotic room feels like a time capsule of teenage identity in 1987, making it one of the most oddly fascinating sets in vampire cinema. Number 5. The bonfire scene was sickeningly real. The vampire feeding frenzy at the bonfire is one of the goriest moments in The Lost Boys. To get the effect right, the special effects crew experimented with unusually thick fake blood, mixing syrups and dyes until it oozed like the real thing. They added chunks of gelatin for texture, so when vampires ripped into victims, it looked disturbingly authentic. The downside was the smell. The mixture clung to costumes, hair, and skin, leaving a sticky residue that reeked under the hot lights. Actors later said it made them feel nauseous, and some refused to eat during breaks because the stench killed their appetite. What looks like stylish horror on screen was, in reality, a messy, stomach-turning experience that hung over the set for days. Number 8. Alex Winter hated his death scene. Alex Winter, later known for Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, played Marco, one of David's gang. His death scene, where he's staked and explodes in a shower of blood and feathers, took days to film. Winter was stuffed into a prosthetic rig so uncomfortable he could barely breathe, surrounded by exploding squibs and sticky blood packs. He later called it the worst 3 days of my life. Ironically, Marco's death became one of the film's most iconic kills, a moment fans love, but one the actor found genuinely miserable and strange. Number 9. Corey Haim's jacket became legendary. Sam Emerson's wardrobe in The Lost Boys was loud, colorful, and eccentric, and that was no accident. Costume designer Susan Becker wanted him to look the complete opposite of the sleek, leather-clad vampires. While David's gang dripped with menace and rebellion, Sam looked like he had just walked out of a comic book shop. His oversized jackets, star-patterned bathrobe, and neon shirts screamed youth and awkward individuality. Corey Haim loved the clothes so much that he asked to keep several items after filming wrapped. Decades later, those fashion choices have become cult treasures. Fans recreate Sam's bizarre wardrobe for cosplay events, Halloween costumes, and even collector replicas. What once looked like goofy fashion from the 80s has turned into an unexpected symbol of the film. The strange legacy is that Sam's closet, once played for laughs, has become as iconic as the vampire's lair itself. Number 10. The vampires slept upside down for real. One of the most disturbing images in The Lost Boys is the gang of vampires hanging upside down in their cave, like monstrous bats waiting to feed. Instead of relying on camera tricks or fake props, Joel Schumacher demanded authenticity. He had the actors hang on rigs upside down, their bodies trembling as blood rushed to their heads. It was far from easy. They could only remain in position for short bursts before dizziness set in, and some of the cast later admitted that the physical strain left them with headaches and nausea. But the results were undeniable. On screen, the scene feels unnatural and predatory, a perfect blending of human and animal. The strangeness comes from the fact that the horror was not entirely staged. For a few haunting seconds of film, the actors really endured the disorienting, painful reality of living like bats. Number 11. The Boardwalk's spooky reputation. Much of the film was shot on the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk, a location with a dark past. A devastating earthquake and fire struck the town in 1906, and local legends grew that spirits lingered in the amusement park. Today, Santa Cruz embraces its connection to the Lost Boys. The city even created an official self-guided map that highlights the film's locations, from the boardwalk to the Trestle Bridge. Fans can download it and retrace the vampire's steps through town, turning the boardwalk's spooky reputation into a permanent piece of local lore. Check out the description below for the link to the map, and share in the comments if you've visited and experienced anything unusual. Number 12. Jason Patric almost turned it down. Jason Patric, who played Michael, was initially reluctant to join the Lost Boys. When first approached, he worried the film would be nothing more than a cheap exploitation-style horror movie, all gore and no substance. Director Joel Schumacher, however, personally convinced him otherwise. Schumacher described his vision for the film as a stylish, character-driven story that blended gothic horror with teen angst, more akin to Rebel Without a Cause with vampires than a standard slasher. Patrick later admitted that it was Schumacher's passion and clarity of vision that won him over. Once on set, he embraced the role fully, helping to anchor the wild, punk vampire energy of the film with a conflicted, brooding performance. His hesitation ultimately paid off. Michael became one of the most memorable characters in 1980s vampire cinema, and Patrick's presence gave the movie the emotional core Schumacher knew it needed. Number 13. The Saxman became a cult icon. Tim Capello was a professional musician known for his stage presence, his bodybuilder frame, and his habit of performing shirtless and drenched in baby oil. When Joel Schumacher brought him into The Lost Boys to play a single beach concert scene, it was supposed to be nothing more than a colorful burst of music to capture the energy of the Santa Carla boardwalk. For a few minutes, the film became a rock video, with neon lights, pumping crowds, and a saxophone solo that seemed almost too wild for the story. What no one predicted was how much that moment would stick. Capello's gyrating hips, chains, and immense performance turned into one of the most talked about scenes in the entire movie. While other vampire films relied on gothic cathedrals and shadowy crypts, The Lost Boys gave audiences a surreal saxophone break that was both ridiculous and unforgettable. It became a scene that fans quoted, parodied, and cheered for at midnight screenings. Decades later, Capello himself leaned into the legend. He began performing I Still Believe at Lost Boys conventions and screenings, where fans dressed as vampires sing along with him as if the concert never ended. The strangest part is that a character who was not even part of the story became a cult hero, celebrated almost as much as the vampires themselves. It proves the strange magic of the Lost Boys. Even a background music act became immortal in pop culture. Number 14. Corey Feldman was a teenage disaster. Corey Feldman was only 15 when he played Edgar Frog, the stone-faced vampire hunter who delivered his lines like a battle-hardened soldier. What audiences never knew was that behind the scenes, Feldman was already battling a dangerous drug addiction. Director Joel Schumacher, who cared deeply about the young actor, reportedly pulled him aside more than once and gave him a warning. If Feldman showed up high again, he would be fired on the spot. Feldman later admitted in interviews that his memories of the Lost Boys are patchy because of the haze he lived in at the time. One day he showed up too strung out to work, and Schumacher sent him home, telling him he had to clean himself up if he wanted to keep the part. To his credit, Feldman did just enough to hold it together and finish the film. The eerie irony is that his discipline on screen looks almost flawless. Edgar Frog never cracks a smile, never wavers, and delivers his lines with a strange intensity that feels beyond his years. Fans love the Frog brothers precisely because of that over-the-top seriousness, but in reality it came from a teenager struggling to control his life. The strange collision of Feldman's spiraling reality with his rigid performance added an unintentional layer of authenticity. A troubled kid playing a character who sees monsters everywhere. Number 15. The death by stereo was a practical, mechanical stunt, not real explosions. During the climactic death by stereo moment, Dwayne is zapped by electricity and launches into a stereo system. Instead of CGI or uncontrolled pyro, the production used a stunt dummy with a mechanical rig and controlled effects to simulate the explosion and dismemberment. While it looks explosive on screen, it was achieved with precision craftsmanship, not actual fire or danger to the actors. Number 16. Edward Herrmann loved playing the villain. Edward Herrmann was a seasoned actor with a long career of playing dignified, intellectual, and fatherly roles. He was the kind of performer audiences trusted immediately, the kind of face you would expect to see as a professor, a lawyer, or a protective dad. That reputation made his role in The Lost Boys all the more effective. As Max, the gentle video store owner, Herrmann leaned into every ounce of charm he had, smiling warmly and carrying himself with calm authority. When the final reveal came, and Max was exposed as the head vampire controlling everything from the shadows, it shocked audiences who had been lulled into a false sense of security. Herrmann admitted in later interviews that this was precisely why he loved the role. For once, he could play against his type, hiding menace behind kindness and delivering a twist that few people saw coming. What makes it stranger is how much Herrmann seemed to relish the deception. He later joked that it was fun to finally be the monster in a film, after years of being cast as the dependable man of reason. His performance gave The Lost Boy its final sting, proving that evil could be hiding behind the most reassuring smile. That contrast, the soft-spoken father figure revealed as a bloodthirsty predator, is part of why the ending still feels unsettling decades later. Number 17. The Vampire Cave was a genuinely built, immersive set. The eerie lair of The Lost Boys wasn't created with CGI or painted backdrops. Instead, it was constructed as a full-scale set on Stage 12 at Warner Bros. Studios. Far from a visual illusion, it was a tangible environment where the damp, enclosed space shaped the performances and added a visceral sense of dread. Number 18. The tagline changed everything. The movie's tagline, "Sleep all day, party all night, never grow old, never die. It is fun to be a vampire," was not just a line on a poster. It captured the film's entire spirit in a single sentence. Instead of pushing fear, it invited audiences into the fantasy of eternal youth, wild nights, and the thrill of never facing age or death. What makes it strange is how powerful those words became. Critics might have brushed the movie aside, but fans clung to that phrase as if it were gospel. It appeared on shirts, written across walls, and copied into fanzines. For many, it was more than a film quote. It was a lifestyle, a mantra about rejecting the daylight grind and embracing a life lived in the shadows. The eerie part is that the tagline took on a life of its own. Long after the marketing campaign ended, people still repeated it as if it carried some secret power. Groups of fans began treating it like a motto, proof that a single sentence could spark a movement. In its own way, the tagline granted the film what its vampires promised: immortality. Number 19. Joel Schumacher saw it as a gay allegory. Director Joel Schumacher never hid the fact that he approached The Lost Boys with layers of meaning beyond the surface. As an openly gay filmmaker, he admitted that he saw the story partly as a metaphor for queer identity and the experience of living as an outsider. The vampires offered Michael not just eternal life, but a chosen family that embraced him in ways his real family could not. The seduction scenes between David and Michael, filled with lingering stares and suggestive language, were carefully crafted with a coded intimacy. The idea of rejecting blood relatives in favor of a new, forbidden community resonated with themes of queer belonging, secrecy, and desire. Schumacher once said that the vampires were meant to be alluring, not just frightening, and that their world was designed to feel like a dangerous but tempting invitation. The strange legacy is that many audiences in the 80s missed those undertones. To them it was simply a cool teen horror flick with motorcycles and fangs. But later generations began to read the film differently, recognizing its place as an unspoken queer allegory. What once looked like gothic MTV fantasy has since become a touchstone of queer cinema, where eternal youth and forbidden desire become symbols of identity and survival. Number 20. The film spawned a real vampire subculture. When The Lost Boys arrived, it did more than entertain. It sparked a movement. Almost overnight, vampire fashion spread through nightclubs and city streets. Leather jackets, bleach blonde hair, heavy boots, and silver jewelry became the new uniform for anyone who wanted to look dangerous and immortal. Teenagers copied David's smirk, Marlon Brando-style bikers grew fangs, and an entire generation found a new way to express rebellion. But it did not stop with fashion. Across America and Europe, real vampire clubs began to appear. These were underground gatherings where people role-played as eternal creatures of the night. Some drank red wine from chalices, others sharpened plastic fangs, and a few even flirted with blood rituals. They were not just playing dress-up, they were trying to live the fantasy that the movie had promised. Sleep by day, party by night, and never grow old. The strangest part is that cultural historians credit The Lost Boys as a turning point that paved the way for the vampire wave of the 90s. Without it, there might never have been Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Blade, or even the glossy vampires of the 2000s. What started as a teen horror film became something much larger. It did not just redefine a genre, it helped create a subculture that blurred the line between movie fantasy and real-life identity. Bonus creepy facts for true fans. Bonus number 1. A Lost Boys 2 was planned in the 80s. The original plan was a sequel called The Lost Girls, focusing on female vampires. Scripts were written but abandoned after studio shakeups. The strange part is that the cult success of the original kept the idea alive for decades, spawning direct-to-video sequels years later. Bonus number 2. The soundtrack was almost bigger than the movie. The soundtrack, featuring Echo and the Bunnymen and INXS, became a cult hit on its own. Some fans argue the music defined vampire cool just as much as the film. Schumacher said he wanted the movie to feel like a rock video with fangs. Bonus number 3. People still gather in Santa Cruz. Every year, fans gather at the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk for screenings of The Lost Boys. Locals dress as vampires, recreate scenes, and party on the same boardwalk where the film was shot. The strange detail is that the city once resisted being linked to a murder movie. Today, it celebrates it like folklore. The Lost Boys wasn't just a vampire movie. It was a neon-soaked fever dream of rebellion, horror, and style. Its cast bled for it, its crew risked accidents for it, and its director layered in meaning that went far deeper than fangs. What began as a kiddie adventure script turned into a gothic cult masterpiece that still inspires cosplay, subcultures, and midnight screenings. The strangest thing of all? It only grows more immortal with time. Like its vampires, the Lost Boys never really died. It just keeps coming back, cooler and creepier than ever. This is Strange Flick Facts, where we uncover the bizarre truths behind your favorite films.